Welcome guys to another episode of the All Ears podcast with me, Luke Barnatt. This podcast was invented for me to learn more about the world. I felt like as I became a good fighter, the better I got, the more I had to learn. The more I'm learning about all these things in life, I feel like I know so little. So I bring on interesting guests to talk to them about different topics in the world. I try and learn along with them and they get to teach me things, and hopefully you guys learn as well. So Andy, what's harder? Getting jacked, this sort of jacked,
right, yeah.
after 35, or starting an online business, a successful online business?
I guess that's a tough one, but it's like one of them, how long's a piece of string? Because it's like previous experience, what's the online business? There's so many variables.
Everyone's starting from zero. Everything's zero. I'm this skinny little 35-year-old, never lifted a weight in my life, and I've never worked online in my life. So starting from base level, what's harder?
I'd say starting a business personally, because like getting in shape, the basics work regardless of what age you're at, especially if you've never lifted weights, you're going to get beginner gains regardless of what age you're at. Yes, you could argue things like testosterone's declining past 35, all of that, you're not in your peak, but the basics work, good sleep, hydration, quality nutrition, like you can teach that quite easily. Starting an online business, there's so many variables that like, it's hard. There's so many more things that you have to think about in a deeper context than just like the basics, even though in all things business, the basics work as well. But if you are a one-man band in an online business, you're the marketing, you're the accountant, you're the person that has to, the face of the business, you're the personal brand. There's so many moving parts that I'd say that's definitely harder.
Okay, so you for me, the reason I asked that question is I am 35. I used to be jacked in my UFC days and fighting days. And I worked out today, in December, it'll be 3 years since I had my last fight. Mm-hmm. And my life has just gone like this in 3 years because I've been focusing so much on everything you just said about business, all the becoming the marketer, becoming the accountant, creating the content, understanding where you got to go and putting all this energy and effort into becoming a good businessman or trying to be a good businessman, that it's really affected the health side quite badly, because I was under the impression as an ex-professional athlete that you just stay in shape, because I've always been in shape. And my brother used to tell me this thing, you got to do 10,000 steps a day, 10,000 steps a day.
Infamous 10K steps.
Yeah. And he would say this to me and I would laugh at him and think, that is gay. Like, I'm not doing 10,000 steps. Why? Just go to the gym more, bro. It's fine. Because all I did every day was go to the gym, train, work out, live a very healthy life, weight cut, all that sort of stuff. So my whole life was consumed by fighting, which was fitness related. So now I've veered off that and started focusing on these other things. I've started to gain weight slowly and looked at myself the last couple of weeks and been like,
fuck this moment. Like,
how the fuck did I get here? Because like I used to be 8% body fat, supreme athlete. At one point in my life, I used to run 3 miles in under 16 minutes, so very, very fast. Sure. Like I could do the 5-minute mile, I could do all that sort of stuff. I ran a very fast 100 meters time. Now I don't even think I could do 5K. I'm not even joking. I don't think I could do a 3 mile run. I know you're saying
when you've not done it in a while.
It's I feel ridiculous. So for me now, I'm really focusing, and this podcast is all about me. You might think it's about you being on as a guest, but it's not.
It's about how you can take from us.
It's all about me being selfish.
Yeah.
Like I'm like a parasite stealing information. And I'm 35 and I want to get back in shape. So what do I need to do?
Well, before we get to what you need to do, there's 2 angles of looking at back to your original question. Which one's harder, right? And there's 2 ways people usually reach out for me. So I only work with busy men or business owners, right? And they're in either one or 2 camps. You're either moving away from pain or you're moving towards pleasure. And you need to decide, for you to be able to understand which one's more important. Is the discomfort and the pain of being out of shape more important to you? Is that pain outweigh the pleasure of becoming a more successful businessman and financial? Because the way I look at all my clients is through 3 lenses: the person, the physique, and the profession. Because you can't usually have one without the other being in sync in some way or another. So for you going, okay, I want to get in shape, it's like a juggling act. It's not a case of, I don't believe in balance. And this is something a lot of, I think, guys get wrong, is they think, okay, I need to be able to spend time on business. I need to be able to exercise more effectively. I need to be able to show up in my personal relationships, right? Be emotionally stable for my family, all of that stuff. But it's not a balanced situation. It's okay, what's more important at the time? Because you're going to go through seasons of cycles of what is the priority. So that's why I'm saying, like, okay, is the pain of where you're at with the physique side of stuff right now the most important thing? Because if it is, then it's really easy to focus on, because you can structure your life around prioritizing that and it just comes down to priorities. Does that make sense?
100%, and I think that's what you just described my life. So the priority of my life when I was fighting was that. Then I've had a 3-year cycle of focusing on business, and the priority has been money in, money in, money in. I need the money. Where's the money? I don't care if I'm the unhealthiest man alive. I need to make money because my whole identity was around being a fighter, and that's how I made income. Then I gave that up. I still need the income, you know what I mean? So I'm there now. I've had this discussion. You know, I'm not an idiot when it comes to physical fitness. I pretend to be. But I understand all of that. And I think I am now there where the most important thing to me right now is my physical condition. I'm not worried about, I said, getting jacked. I'm not worried about looking the part. I just don't want to be out of shape. I'm not like looking to become... We talk about Mike Thurston all the time because he's got the perfect physique. I'm not looking to become Mike Thurston. I just don't want to be embarrassing, you know? And I know that's my focus now. So I'd say I'm already there on that part.
Yeah, I think for you, it's like when we're talking about prioritizing a certain area, say like that person, the physique, the profession, like you're now wanting to push towards the physique side of stuff, right? Because on a professional level, you've got some kind of stability there. So you now have the capacity to be able to push, but it's about, for busy guys and business owners that I work with, it's not about just then taking your foot off the gas in the other areas. It's just about, okay, well, how do we now structure things so that you have the space and the capacity to prioritize that? And that's going to look so different for everyone. So without, you know, it's like one of the old infamous question, how long is a piece of string? It's looking at you as an individual and going, okay, well, where's most of your energy spent? What can you realistically commit to in terms of movement? You know, the infamous 10K steps, it's bullshit. But very few of my clients get 10K steps in. And it's like, if you want to not have to go on a fucking 2-hour walk every day, you're going to have the discipline to cut back in some areas, and that's probably going to be nutrition. So for a lot of the busy guys that I work with from a nutritional standpoint, okay, well, if you can't get as much movement in and we have to pull your nutrition back, how can we do that? Okay, if you're working big working blocks first thing in the day, do you need to eat sat at a desk? So there's a term that I learned from a nutritionist, good friend of mine, Chris Lowe, when I first started working with him, is give the body what it needs when it needs it. If you're sat at a freaking desk and you're not moving, do you need a big bowl of porridge? Do you need a big meal? Probably not. Can you just have a black coffee and, you know, intermittent fasting, it's not magic, but pushing your first meal back, that eating window, does that allow you to consume less total calories over the space of the day because you've got your big work block done? You can then enjoy food with your family or clients in the evening. That kind of stuff, it's just about like thinking about what does your actual life look like? How do you want it to look? What are you prepared to sacrifice? And then just start plugging things in from there.
So we mentioned fasting. That's something I kind of did for a while, or still kind of do, but I do it without even realizing it because I'm so busy. But now, if you're going to, for me now at the moment, I want to lift weights. Not bothered about combat training or trekking or doing anything. I want to just lift, put a bit of muscle mass on, all that sort of stuff. Can you do that effectively whilst in a fasted state? Because this is what I've been. I normally wake up, deal with the kids, whatever, go to the gym straight away. That's how I've sorted out my life, like you were just talking about. But if I'm fasted and I don't eat anything and then I go to the gym and I lift weights, is that a positive thing or a negative thing? Or it depends on the situation?
Again, it depends. If you look at like body capacity to store carbohydrates, if you're looking, say if you train later in the day or you train in the morning, as long as you fuel your body after the training and you replace the glycogen, the carb stores that have been used, then the following morning you can train and you shouldn't really have any issues. Say like 6 grams of carbs per kilo body weight, and that would be like fully replenished. You don't even have to have that. Like as long as you're getting some carbs later in the day, you go in the morning, train, you're okay running off water, maybe a black coffee or whatever you want to have. You're going to be fine. It's only if you're then going a few days without enough fuel that in the morning you're going to feel like absolute shit because you run it, you know, carbohydrates are the main source of energy for medium to high intensity exercise, resistance training, right? So if you're not getting that in, you're going to feel empty, you're going to feel flat, you're not going to get a pump, and then you probably are going to struggle a little bit.
So that it's to do with the food that you consume the day before rather than on the day, in a way. Like if in my case, I'm training in the morning, I wake up, say get up at 7 o'clock and sort the kids out, take them to school, then I'm going to the gym. I've consumed nothing but water and maybe a black coffee, and then I work out. Am I at my optimum then, or should I eat when I wake up?
Again, this depends on personal preference. Like I can train fasted as long as I've eaten enough carbohydrates, think of it as in like a 24-hour window.
Okay.
Think of it like that. So if you're running your 24 hours training slot from the morning to that same next morning, if you're eating the carbs, you're going to be replenishing that and you're going to feel, in my opinion, okay. You are going to have some days where you're going to feel more tired, but that's fucking life. Do you know what I mean? So it's a case of just, can you create structure? And this is something I say to my clients as well, like with food, if you can create a habit and you can create structure around your meals where it's like relatively consistent at consistent times in the day, your body likes routine, your body likes consistency. Even though it's very adaptable, it's going to help you with your energy levels, just like it will with your sleep. If you get in a regular bedtime, your circadian rhythm synchronized, you're going to feel better. And it's just about, okay, well, looking at you as the individual, how can we systemize your diary so that you're more organized, your nutrition is not just ad hoc all over the place, like, oh, I forgot to eat, because that's when you start feeling shit. You know, when you go through those long periods, I'm really bad for stress fasting, where I'll just be like, I've got so much work to do, I've got so much to do, and you forget to eat. And I know a lot of my clients are in the same position because they're like, I'll just get to that checkpoint on my checklist or my to-do list, and then they've done another 2 and it's 9 o'clock at night and they've had 1 meal for the day. So it's like, okay, well, can we timestamp your meals into your day? Can we create consistency, structure, so that your needs are put first? Because going back to what I said about the person, the physique, the profession, most of the time you are the firing pin in your business and your life. So if your energy needs aren't met, your recovery is not met, your performance in your business, your performance in your personal relationships, it's going to be shit. So it's about thinking of that when we talked about the other day about that long-term vision of where you want to be at. Like being a dad, being a family man is important to you. Being a businessman is also important. But right now, physically, you're trying to make a change. You need to make sure that your needs are met first so that you can show up better for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, just to have absolute clarity, we met in a cafe that's just across the road from the podcast studio, and we started talking about my situation, and that's why I brought you on the podcast, because we had these deep conversations and you're going through all these journeys that I'm, you know, or you're dealing with all these journeys, or dealing with them for your clients that I'm kind of going through. So I was like, if I had this guy on the podcast, I could ask him loads of questions.
Yeah,
so
free consultation, right?
Yeah, basically, but everyone can see, and hopefully they can get something from it as well. And I completely understand the mentality of putting yourself first. I'm the most selfish man alive. Literally. Any fighter out there, professional fighter or professional athlete, doesn't have to be a fighter, if they are not the most selfish man alive, they're never going to get anywhere, because you have to be 100% focused on your needs. You can't. That's why a lot of, as fighters get a little bit older and more responsibilities come into their life, they fall off a little bit.
Priorities change.
Yeah, priorities change and things get difficult. So it's like you can't dedicate 100%. I remember, so when I used to fight in UFC, I used to train in my gym in Cambridge, and for a place called Tsunami Gym, amazing people, amazing place. And that unfortunately closed down, and I had to find a new gym. And I moved out to California, to San Diego, because I was sponsored by a company called Bad Boy. And the owner of Bad Boy lived in San Diego, and he gave me a yacht to sleep on and a G-Wagon to drive. So I was like, okay, I'm going to California.
This is great.
Yeah, and California's not bad. And I trained at a gym out there, which was incredible. Like the level of athletes and training that I was getting at this gym in San Diego was 100x what I was getting in Cambridge, but I had the connectivity with my group in Cambridge. So I actually...
How old were you then?
25, 26.
It's completely different to now.
Yeah. Well. But then what I was going to say is Robin, the guy that owned Bad Boy, because I took my girlfriend with me at the time, and he was like, you need to get rid of this girl. And I was like, why? He goes, she's taking your focus away from fighting. If you want to be the best fighter you can be on the planet, you don't need this. And I like, no, she's my wife now. We've been together 10 years, so it's whatever. But I actually, now when I look back at his advice, it's 100% right. 100% right.
For the goal at the time.
For the goal at the time, right? Yeah. I'm very happy that I didn't do that. My life's amazing because of it. But I'm saying, like, I completely understand putting yourself as a priority. But then because all of your other responsibilities, your family life, your business, everything was going to grow from that, and you're going to be better for that. And that's kind of what I still, you were saying about like business, health, relationship, like you have different moments when they become priorities, like balance is...
It's going to change all the time.
It's a lie,
well.
like, yeah. So right now, my business is going well. I've moved my head's above water where I can breathe, and I'm not worried like, how am I going to pay the rent? You know? So I'm now okay to look at my physical fitness and get that in shape. So putting myself, basically what you're saying is I need to become more selfish.
Yeah, but at the same time as well, like think about those 3 hours we talked about person, physique profession again. I'll bring that up all the time through this podcast because I think it's so relevant. With our kind of network of guys who are similar to us, right? Self-employed, entrepreneurs, business owners, also into fitness. It's like I say this to my clients all the time, if you're trying to actually maximize your physical potential, it's going to come down to being selfish, but also learning on a personal level how to communicate better. Because like I have no doubt when it comes to making business decisions, you're cold, you see it as it is, you make those black and white decisions. But when it comes to communicating to maybe your wife, your kids, to get this emotional support you need to be like, look, I just need this time for myself to go train. Guys suck at that. They suck at speaking their mind on a personal level. You could say I'm generalizing there, but the guys that I work with are in that kind of category of they're great at communicating when it comes to professional, out with the lads, whatever, but setting boundaries in their own personal life at home to be able to prioritize themselves, not being a people pleaser. That's where they struggle. So like,
I think men in general, so I do not struggle with this, just so you know. It's something that I'm very, very strong at and confident at. And I think most men struggle with this from day one when they meet a woman, understanding their own value and that they should put themselves first. And that's actually what women want because they're attracted to that.
Lead.
They want a leader,
exactly.
right? So if you're going to be the leader, but then you're going to break your boundaries, be like, oh, no, I want to be there for you, and you're not going to focus on yourself, slowly that erodes your relationship. We've spoken about that quite a few times on here. Yeah. But yeah, so we used the phrase last week on the podcast, hierarchy, like a hierarchy or like organization, but a hierarchy, a family hierarchy, and an understanding of like, okay, I'm the leader. That means I have to provide X, Y, and Z. So the boundaries are this, and this. And it's difficult, I think. What we were talking about was having kids, because once you have kids, the whole dynamic shifts within your relationship and you have to like kind of balance it back out. But then if you're confident enough as a man and you're used to setting these boundaries, if you're a weak man to start with and you're kind of struggling and then your wife has a baby and you're in that position of weakness,
amplify your problems.
You can't say, no, I've got to go to the gym, because if I go to the gym, I'm a better father, a better husband, or whatever it is. You struggle to say that because you're from a position of weakness. So I think that is easy if you have it set up from the beginning. But I imagine you're talking about your clients, how do they get over that? Like if they're in a position of weakness where they haven't been setting boundaries and they haven't been saying this is X, Y, and Z, I have to do this because this is the result, and they've been forward with their wives or girlfriends.
Because it comes back to a confidence issue as well. So like when you think of confidence, and this is a Hormozy saying, it's about having an undeniable stack of evidence that you are who you say you are, right? Small micro wins accumulate, you become more confident. And it's like guys will come to me, and I always say this to guys who are wanting to get in shape. They're like, oh, Andy, I want a six pack. I've never had one. I'm like, cool. But why do you really want a six pack? Like, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, why the fuck do you want a six pack? Because you'll get there and then realize that's not what it is. And they're like, oh, yeah, I want to meet a bird. And I'm like, okay, why are you struggling to meet a bird? Because you don't put your needs first. You don't step up. You're not emulating confidence. It's all these things. And going back to like the getting in shape question, I think it comes down to guys being able to have almost like that longer term vision of where they're wanting to be at in the relationship as well. So going back to what you said about like the family thing, it's not being a leader isn't about being a dictator, but it's about having the confidence to communicate and saying, look, this is what needs to happen, and having a shared vision. And a lot of the guys, when, going back to the communication thing, it's like they just don't know how to articulate what they actually want. And that becomes a huge problem.
Yeah, I think they don't even know how to articulate what they want. They don't even know what they want, right? Yeah. They've never even thought about it. You said long-term vision. And this is something I deal with every day. And it's like, if you don't know, I always just say, if you don't know where you're going, how the hell are you going to get there? Simple phrase, but if you don't know where you're going, how the hell are you going to get there? If you get on a train and you don't know what stop you're getting off at, you're not going to get off at the right stop. So the first thing you have to understand is, where am I going? And who do I want to become? Or what's the sort of man that I want to be? This is a lot of things that I talk about, like having purpose in your life and the rest of it. But you mentioned something really interesting about the men nowadays not having confidence. And something that I find insane is men, I want to get a six pack because I want to get a bird. Cool. Fair enough. If that's the reason, whatever. But most guys, or most, I say losers because I like to be, a bit annoying. Most losers will live their life where they don't know about brokies. That's not my vernacular. But most losers will go through their entire life settling with a 3 because they're not willing to talk to a 10. right? So the fact that they're not even willing to make the leap, to have the conversation, to approach the girl, they're not even confident enough to do that. They will settle for a 3 and live their life unhappy and miserable.
Comfort zones, isn't it?
Because they're in their comfort zone and they don't even want to step outside it. So the people that don't want to step outside the comfort zone, they are, rather than the fear of stepping outside the comfort zone and dealing with an uncomfortable situation, they'll be in a shitty, comfortable situation, and they'll do that for the rest of their life.
2 types of discomfort. One's going to get you a result. You're going to be in discomfort anyway. You might as well get a result out of it.
You said, what did you say? You're either running away from...
Either running away from pain or you're moving towards pleasure. So then there's a huge difference. It's like, say you're a fat kid, right? And that's really kind of brash saying it like that, but you're a fat kid, you're bullied all your life, and you've very much attached your identity to being that person because you've been told that you are that person all your life, right? And you live in that every day. And then you've got someone who's actually driven by positive motivation, which is pleasure. You know, I want to move towards building a business or building a really successful family or whatever it is. It's like the guys that are in a lot of pain, that I often find, the ones who are in more pain, usually get a better result when they're given the structure and the tools and the roadmap to do it, because it's more uncomfortable than not achieving something that's just a bit of pleasure. And I think a lot of guys, that's why I ask them a bit on a, scratch beneath the surface when they're like, I want to get abs. I'm like, okay, but is there any pain here we can use? Because it's like, I feel like it's more fuel to the fire than just being like, I want a nice car because it's going to be cool. Do you know what I mean?
I think moving towards pleasure is actually probably the worst thing you can do with your life, because it's
hollow.
It's hollow, unfulfilling, and it doesn't help you in any way. So anyone who's motivated by pleasure, they use the word pleasure, I think they are kind of like, you know better than me. They're probably the guys that go through cycles, right? That maybe they get in shape, but then they're out of shape, then they get in shape, then they're out of shape, because they're pursuing the pleasure, and they get the pleasure and they're like, I want some more. I need some more. I need some more. I need some more. And it's like an endless pit of despair, because pleasure doesn't fulfill your life or make you feel any better, right? So I find that if you're moving away from pain, I think pleasure and pain are both motivators, but I think if you're looking for fulfillment, what's the word that I'm looking for? Purpose. Yeah. If you're looking for purpose in your life, once you find purpose, then it's easy to make all these changes, right? It's easy to do. You don't need pleasure, you don't need pain, you just need purpose. Once you have purpose, you are willing to pay the price or the sacrifice for all of these things to get to where you want to be. But again, it's about knowing where you want to go, right?
Yeah, I use my own discomfort and pains, like as a teenager in my early 20s with my clients all the time, like fully transparent about it, taking drugs, going out, alcohol, not being happy because I lacked purpose. And I think I said this to you before a while back, around guys engage in self-destructive habits for one of 2 reasons. It's either exploration or escapism. And like, there's a huge difference. Again, it's like the pain versus pleasure. Usually guys that are struggling to get in shape, they're like escaping their reality because it's not fulfilling. They've not got that purpose. And it's like, yeah, I'm not knocking guys who go out and have a drink, because I've been there and done it. I went out on Sunday, to play a padre, I had a great time, got a bit messy, whatever. But it's like the position that I was doing that for was with my friend's birthday, spending quality time with my friends, like going having a laugh, versus being, I'm stressed out of my mind because of my business Monday to Friday, and I'm just trying to escape the reality of the weekend. And I think even bringing that to a lot of guys' attention, especially at like 35, when they're in the position of whether they're trying to get in shape again, whether they're trying to build an online business, there's that subconscious, unspoken pressure that they should have all their shit together. It's like, okay, well, let's just break it down into where you actually are. Again, personally, physically, professionally, like, what's the real bottleneck here for you? Because getting abs is a really simple process. Eating calorie deficit, moving more, controlling your nutrition, recover, whatever. If you're constantly using, I talk again in my program about 4 self-destructive habits, it's like the ones I see, it's people pleasing, overworking, comfort eating, alcohol and drugs, right? On a personal level, what self-destructive habits are holding you back? Why can't you seem to maintain a deficit to lose weight and get abs? Because I have a 12-hour day working, I end up pulling in the drive-through, getting a family bargain bucket, KFC, smashing the whole thing.
Awesome.
Repeat the cycle, right? And so when you get down to it, it's like, it's not always a surface level thing. It's like, okay, well, let's tackle the big rocks in your life that are holding you back. It might be on a personal level. It might be a professional level where you're not setting a boundary with your boss and you're just taking on way more work than you should be, because you're a cog in a wheel and you don't see any way out. It could be all these different things. So it's like, some coaches will look at the content I put out there and be like, it's a bit woo-woo, but really it's just actually helping men take control of their lives, becoming independent, becoming a leader, and actually taking responsibility of those 3 areas. Because when you actually start doing that, going back to what you said, purpose, having the vision, you see what you're working towards, whether that means you're going to be escaping pain and working towards pleasure. Suddenly you've got that purpose, you've got that vision, you've got that clarity, and your life becomes exciting again, and you don't feel the need to engage in all that bullshit.
Of it, you kind of, I mean, it made an amazing point, but you kind of scaled over something that I think was super, super poignant when you said that, and we'll talk about drugs and alcohol. Let's talk about like when partying. You're going partying for one of 2 reasons. One's escapism, and the other one is exploration. You use that phrase, right? Yeah. So to dive a bit deeper into that, because I'm, you said this to me a couple of days ago, and for me, it kind of resonated with me. It's like, it's kind of like self-destructive, or like exploration is kind of like enjoyment. Or
enjoyment. Literally, like explore positive emotion, if you want to call it that. With like, I hadn't seen my best friend in quite a while, and it's like he'd come out here for my client event. We had the amazing client event over the weekend. It was like, right, let's round it off. Let's go have a few drinks and catch up. And like, that's, to me, that's exploration. It's positive. It's not, you're really stressed, I'm really stressed, let's go just escape our reality and get off our tits. There's a big difference. And I think as well, bringing that attention to a lot of guys who are stuck in that weekend cycle of just beers with the boys, going out watching the footy, that kind of stuff. It's like, even just asking them, which one is it right now? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I've never been asked that. It's never been brought to my attention, like, are you doing this to escape, or are you doing this to enjoy or explore, or whatever you want to call it? Like, I think that's very, very, like, if you're listening, I think just ask yourself that question. Like, okay, I mean, this weekend, what am I doing? I'm not going out this weekend, I don't think. No, I'm not. But last weekend I went out. It's like, why did I go out? It makes me think about it, right? Yeah. And because then it's not just health, then it's financial, it's all these sort of things. Because some guys are going out spending crazy amounts of money every weekend, but for what reason? Maybe it's because they're lost. Like you said, they're what's the phrase? I'm trying to use the phrases that you use. Like, they're self-harming themselves. Like
self-destructive.
Self-destructive. It's like, if you really think about the purpose to your choices, and I think most people don't, they just drift through life. And if you give them that, you identify this as a problem, like, okay, no problem going out. I like going out and having a good time and being an idiot. I love it. So, but what's the purpose of it? For me, most of the time, fortunately for me, it's very explorative, or whatever. Exploration, because it'll be like client meetings or meeting people in my network, or it'll be networking. There's purpose to it. I'm not just, I don't really go out just to go out anymore. Happens every now and then, maybe when I'm that stressed or whatever you said. And now I'd reevaluate that. But I'm going through a stage in my life now where I'm thinking about, I was teetotal during my fighting days for quite a few years. And I'm gonna go back to that, I think, and reevaluate why I'm going out and what I'm doing it for. And it was a lot of exploration, because my identity had completely changed from being a fighter who needed to be teetotal because of my profession, to be in a, I last 3 years of my life, if you follow me, you would have seen I've been all over the world, enjoying myself, partying here and there, hanging out with cool people, living the life. But I've done a lot of that now, and now why am I doing it? Like, I was doing it before because it was like FOMO almost. I feel like I'd missed out.
And it helped you, like as you said, network to get to the level of profession that you wanted, to network, to have the right people around you to do all of that. But then it's like, I've done it. It's in the bank. It's stable. Now what? Focus on yourself, the physique. And I think, what you said about identity shifts, bang on the money, because especially like what we were talking about around that 30 to 35, there is that pressure to have your shit together, right? Because you want your future to be secure for yourself, for your family. And as that gets bigger, it's like, when we go back to understanding meaning behind why maybe you're going out, it goes back to something I say with my clients, with the purpose of having a weekly check-in, accountability, structure, planning, anchor points in your week to be able to reflect on your thought processes, your actions, why you actually do stuff. Because most people just are on autopilot with habits they've built over years and years and years and years. But when you actually just draw attention to whether it's a self-destructive habit, whether it's a positive habit, okay, what's the meaning behind why you're doing this? When you can unpack that and make sense of something, it becomes so easy to change it, because you're almost breaking the cycle of the subconscious and you're putting conscious effort into, okay, well, can we structure your week around stuff? So using the weekend thing as an example again, if a guy is constantly tripping himself up in my program with drinks every weekend, I'm like, cool, right. Your accountability this week for a check-in is to now go and make plans that don't revolve around meeting X, Y, and Z for a little bit until you can get a handle on it, build some momentum with it, and bring it back in as a exploration, not an escapism, all that kind of stuff makes such a difference. But having that purpose and the structure to be able to reflect, to be able to, and again, some people will be like, oh, that's woo-woo. It's not. It's having an understanding of yourself, your own actions, and that gives you power, gives you leadership over your own life. And it's about how you frame it, because when you think about how everyone operates, it comes down to status. And it's like, okay, well, creating that identity shift in, say, 30 to 35, 35 to 40, it's like, get clear on how do I frame this? What standards, what characteristics, what behaviors does the person that you want to be look like? Then you can reverse engineer it, architect the environment, architect your circles, change things, change your habits, structure your week, so that eventually, again, I use this term a lot in our client community, you want where you're spending most of your time, the people you're spending your time with, you want the desired behavior to be the normal behavior. So if you can get clear on what that is in terms of an identity shift, you can create that, reverse engineer it, put yourself in the right circles, whether it's a mentorship, whether it's a sports team, getting back into sport, a CrossFit class. That desired behavior is the normal behavior. It becomes so much easier to create the change, and the identity will follow as part of doing that.
Yeah, I think you break that down brilliantly, but I think you're basically talking about the people that you surround yourself with and the circle that you're in are the people that you want to be like.
Cliche as it is, your network, your net worth.
Exactly, all that stuff. But it's like, if you're spending time with people that make loads of money, then making loads of money is normal. Yeah. If you spend time with loads of people with six packs, then having a six pack's normal.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
But they have to have the foundation and the effort, the things to do the things to give them those. So if you hang out with people with loads of money, people with loads of money have to work. So we've got a couple of friends here in Marbella that live together. And whenever you go around, they have like a table there. They all sit around the table on laptops together, like working all day. And I'm just like, it's a great environment for people that want to get on with their want to work, want to make money. But if you go around another friend's house, they're sitting on the sofa watching Netflix.
Playing Xbox.
Exactly. That's not going to be the environment you want to be around. So it's like, they talk about you being the mean of the 5 people you spend the most time with, all that. It's so true, unbelievably true. And I think it breaks down pretty simple. You broke it down very, very, like in depth. But what I noticed with it, or what I talk to a lot of people about, is like, you need to identify the problems first. That's the struggle. So you asking me that question, are you escaping or exploring? Like that, just asking that question is like an identification. Mm-hmm. So you need to identify what the problem is. You then need to analyze that, how you solve that problem, and then you need to execute the thing. So you have to like identify what it is, analyze how you can make it better. Like you just said, maybe I change my circle, maybe I go to a different place, maybe I set up whatever, and then you need to actually do it, which is the bit that probably 90% of people struggle with.
The lack of accountability.
Yeah, and that's the lack of accountability, and that's the lack of having the people in your circle, or a mentor, or a coach, or whatever it is, checking in with you every week and saying, listen, bro, did you get that thing done? Yeah, I was gonna, but and then excuse. We just had coffee downstairs with someone that was on the podcast, Dan Chapman, who's a world champion bare knuckle boxer, extremely talented kid.
Yeah.
And we were talking to him about, which we'll talk about with you now, like starting online businesses and how that can, really change your life and give you freedom and all those sort of things. And I said, oh, Dan, why didn't you do it? And he just went off on all of these reasons why he couldn't do it. And I was just like, listen, bro, that is bullshit. Absolute bullshit. You're lying to yourself. They are excuses. And he was like, oh, you're right.
You're right. Yeah.
And I think, how have you found, like, obviously, coming from the beginning of your journey to now being online and working online with clients and having your community and getting people together for your meetups and all that sort of stuff, what I believe about online business, and I like to talk about it a lot on the podcast, and I know you deal with it a lot, so that's why I wanted to bring you on, is it gives you a limitless expanse of clients that you can obtain, and it gives you much more freedom in your life. So what have been the benefits for you to start an online business?
Yeah, I mean, even if we just go back to the history of how I got into coaching, before I was an online coach, I was an in-person coach for 10 years. And I was fully booked as a one-to-one PT, and I also had my meal prep company. So I hit a point in my life where I was going out every single weekend, escaping my reality because I'd hit the ceiling, as a term you used before. It's like, I couldn't physically trade any more of my time one-to-one with clients. I could put my prices up, but again, the return on that change is going to be not that much, an extra £10 an hour or whatever. and I had my meal prep company. I wasn't time rich, but I had 2 successful businesses, right? But I was still then going out on a weekend and getting, pissed out my head, just not really having much purpose. And I think when you go from a position of kind of where you're in that position of thinking, well, what's next? Is this it? You then either have 2 options. You either self-implode and you stay in that comfort zone or discomfort zone, as it was for me, or you go, do you know what? I'm going to ask someone for help and raise my hand. And I've worked with several business mentors. My current coach, Joe Parrish, great guy. He's helped me so much. And having someone to just visually be in your corner for accountability and to say, look, like we talked about with who's in your circle, he's doing huge numbers. He's got an amazing community of coaches. And it's like, when you see someone else doing it and you're like, okay, well, it's possible. And it's just about changing what your perception of, like, take the blinkers off. If you're limiting beliefs, and it goes back to what we were saying about not thinking you can maybe lose weight, and just that limiting belief about who you are as a person, identity, and what you said with Dan, what stories are you telling yourself? What narrative's going through your head? You challenge that and you go, where's that come from? How's it done it? You can then go, okay, well, these are the areas that I fucking suck or I struggle with. I'm going to delegate. I need help with that. And that was a huge turning point for me. Being able to say, look, I don't know anything about creating systems online for my business. I know I want to work with more people. I want to earn more money. I want to have a bigger impact, a bigger community. That's why I changed from just coached by Andy to building the Uncompromised program, because I wanted it to be about something bigger than just me. As much as I am the face of it, I wanted it to be bigger. I wanted it to be a network of professionally driven guys that can help each other out, and have that framework, that system in place where it's like, you don't have to have all the right answers, but you're committed to actually knowing, okay, well, there's something better out there. I'm going to go and try and get it. And that's one of the values of having a community of similar guys. Like this weekend, we had our Marbella event, and I had, guys from my age all the way up to 60. Al and Sandy were there. And these are very successful businessmen, working in accountancy, finance, and we sat around having a couple of pints, and they gave us so much value about questions like, hey, well, I'm only thinking about where I want to be maybe by 35. They were asking me questions like, Andy, where do you want to be when you're 45? And again, that raised the ceiling. And now I'm thinking long term about those kind of things. So I guess going back to your question around how I got into the online and wanting to do more, it was just about understanding that when you actually start achieving goals, you realize, okay, well, there's always going to be a what's next. The goalposts always move. And I realized that online, it's just way more scalable to have a bigger impact on guys who were like me.
Yeah, we're talking about Dan a little bit, and just because we literally just saw him.
Yeah.
And I feel like Dan is me 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So he's in an identity place where he's a boxer. And all he knows is boxing. I don't know anything about business. How would I know anything about business? It's like, bro, it's not that difficult. Trust me, I've been there and I've done it. It's not that hard. But I think when you're in it and you're struggling, so
it's here.
Yeah, it's here. So it's very, very difficult when you're, especially I've had a few personal trainers on a bit. So when you're a PT, I was a PT for a while, and you have session after session after session after session, and you got to train yourself, and then you go home and you're knackered. It's like hard to look at the wider scale. You just said, like, I think about when I'm 35, someone asked me, what are you going to do when you're 45? You don't even think that. You think, tomorrow I've got 5 clients and I need to do this. So it's sometimes just taking a step back from your life and identifying, again, like I always say, if you identify, analyze, and execute, like identifying where you want to go, who you want to be, the sort of person you want to become. And I find a lot of people, I'm talking about self-employed people most of the time, but like, I don't understand the mentality of not wanting to free up your time. People are afraid of it for some reason. I don't know if you come across with that. Like you said, these business guys that you're speaking to, any advice that they have on you have to leverage your time as much as you possibly can. And if you're only dealing with one person every hour and you're getting paid a certain amount of money, it's impossible to do that. How did you identify that problem? You said you seeked out a mentor, but what made you do that? When you hit the ceiling, you were like, what was the pain point?
I had to take time off work. I literally hit burnout. So I was doing, my average day would probably look like 6, 7 a.m. until probably like 8 p.m. at night. And then I was like picking up stuff for my meal prep company that I was trying to grow at 8 o'clock. And it's like, what kind of life is that? As much as you can say, the hustle, the grind, if you want it, you want it. But it's like, I wasn't happy. It doesn't matter. Like, I can work. I didn't feel like my purpose, my needs were being met, because There's nothing wrong with in-person coaching. I still love coaching people now and again in person. It was just that I felt very unfulfilled that I was kind of doing the same thing. And as a coach, like, I think if you're not committed to improving your education, constantly iterating, constantly growing, you are going to get stagnant, you are going to get bored. And that's the same in any industry. And I say this to the guys in my program, like, okay, well, how can you be upskilling? How can you be growing? How can you be doing things that are different? Because the physique's just one piece of the puzzle. You know, whether that's, going back to your question, I was getting a bit off tangent there. It's like, I got to that point where I just hit burnout and I was like, I can't do this for another 5 to 10 years. So I was like, okay, well, what are the other options? And as a coach, like I said, you grow, you change, and why I changed it to the Uncompromised program, because it can be bigger than just me. I was starting to think about that longer term vision. It's like, okay, well, I can only work with X amount of people per week. I want to help more guys who have probably experienced that burnout that I've just experienced, guys who've gone through phases of depression, guys who maybe had a bit of an alcohol problem, whatever it is. And to be able to think, okay, well, if I'm feeling like that, there's probably a lot of other guys feeling like that. And that's when I was like, bing, light bulb moment. Okay, I was really compromising myself, my health, my personal standards, my relationships, because I didn't have any. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, well, to be able to change this, I'm just going to need someone that can, and that's what a good mentor and a coach will do, stretch your vision far past what you can see personally. And when I spoke to a couple of people and found the right guy, I was like, he was telling me things of what I could achieve that I was like, nah. And he was like, look, I'll show you the data. I helped this guy do this, numbers. And when it's put in front of you like that, you can't not believe it. And that's exactly what I do with my clients. I'm like, look, the average fat that my clients lose is 12 kilos in the first phase. So it's like, and I can show you visual data of people doing that, and then they create buy-in, they understand the process. So it's the same with anything. I think it's just a case of understanding, dropping the ego and asking for help, and a lot of men aren't ready to do that.
I think you bring up a good point about belief.
Yeah.
It's like once you physically see it, you then this is what I'm an egotistical maniac, but whenever I see anyone doing something, I'm like, why can't I do that? Mm-hmm. Like if he can do it, I can do it. And I've had that probably happen to me 100 times in the last 3 years, because I'm surrounded by amazing people in amazing situations. And when I see them do something, I'm like, I could definitely do that, mm-hmm. Without a doubt. So and actually the whole reason I started my podcast and my YouTube was that moment. I saw some guy, met him. I'm not going to name him or anything, but had a huge following. Just like, if this guy can do it, I can do it. Well, it's just inevitable if you put in the effort and you put in the time. So I think I call that like identifying the problem, like I've said a few times. But when you identify it, the easiest way to identify something is someone to show you the possibilities that you can have. And that's and that comes to relationships and everything else in your life as well. If you see someone else with happy, constant relationship and they're like together, you think, oh, it's actually possible, because the whole world tells you doom and gloom.
Don't watch the news.
Yeah, never, ever.
If you listen to this, just don't watch the news.
But you was talking about your Uncompromised program. Like, let's go into that and tell me exactly what it is, and not so much a sales pitch, but explain what it is and what you actually do.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we've touched on the main basis of it, like who I help, busy men, business owners. I help them look at their health and their life goals. I'm not a fucking life coach, even though one of my clients, Jord, at the weekend, every group of girls that we were out, he'd meet, he'd be like, this is my life coach. I'm like, well, you fucking stop that. I'm not. But I just help guys get really clear on a vision that genuinely excites them. And that covers 3 areas: personal, physical, professional. And that's pretty much the basis of what I do. Because I believe the physical health is the thing that underpins your ability to progress in anything else. Because some coaches will preach and talk about time management. And this is something I learned off my coach. It's not about time management, it's about energy management. Where you put in your energy, because where the energy goes, results follow, right? Things will compound. You put your energy into the right areas. That's why I said about priorities is so important, because if you want to grow your business, you're going to have to go full tilt on the business. It means that the other 2 areas are going to have to pull back a little bit. Maybe personal relationships, communicate to your wife. I'm going to be working like physical, maybe drop your training frequency down a little bit. It's a constant iteration game.
Well, because for me, use me as an example again, you use the word energy, which is great. I think like intention, because I've been going through the last 2 months, 3 months, I want to get in shape. I'll start going to the gym. Been going to the gym, every morning, 10 o'clock, get there, do my workout, but there's no intention there. There's no energy there. I'm just like going through the motions of doing it because I know that's kind of what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's not changed anything.
Yeah.
And now I've understood and identified that's the problem, and the way that I fix it is putting some energy or some structure and energy into that issue. And now the only way that works, if I'm going to go hard in the gym, then I'm going to be a bit more tired throughout the day, and I'm not going to have the energy to maybe do so many sales calls or to do long podcasts or do 3 podcasts in a day, or maybe I can only do 1. Fine. You have to understand your limitations. Yes, you can push your limitations, and you should always be trying to push your limitations. But what I have learned through my last 10 years or 20 years is that intention, that word intention. That's what I've been trying to do for the last 3 or 4 when I've been going into business. I'm trying to keep, because in training it was easy for me, because when I was fighting, I would train 2 or 3 times a day. Each session would be an hour to an hour and a half, and my intention only mattered in those sessions. So it was like, as long as I had full intention in my training, I had a whole training journal and a whole system towards training, and I kept full intention. It's only like 2-3 hours a day. So I improved vastly in those things. Now in business, it's all day. My intention has to be like, my attention span has to be a lot longer, talking like 10, 12 hours a day. So I'm trying to slowly increment and increase the amount of intention and energy I can put into something. And I think that is, because I know people that I see and I spend time with, and they are switched on, focused on something throughout the whole day, all day, every day. It's like a learned skill. I learned the skill for training. I'm very, very good at focusing on something. I'm efficient at focusing for an hour.
Get in the gym, it's good. I'm really glad you said this, because one of the ways that I look at my clients, and this is applicable to you now that you're juggling the business, you're trying to actually prioritize your health a little bit, is like, it doesn't have to be, you've got something, if you shout out to Dan Reeve, strength coach, does my programming, unbelievable guy at what he does, and he uses something to say, keep the goal. What is the main goal right now? And that's to get in shape. But you can also have micro goals underneath that big goal. You can still look to grow your business, but just think about a weekly structure. And this is something I say to my clients. Looking at your weekly structure, set days had different energy days. For me, my high energy days are Monday, Tuesday. Start of the week, I'm raring to go, and big tasks get done there. Business is the priority Monday, Tuesday. Physique, Wednesday, Tuesday, probably a little bit of less of an intense session. And when you start, like, going back to the energy management thing, when you think about things like that and you actually start opening your eyes to, where's my energy going? What are the actual energy demands on certain days? Then you can start pairing, and that's when you create structure that complements your lifestyle, not complicates it. And that's when you find a groove with it yourself. And that's when people say to me, how do I get in shape? I'm like, show me what your life looks like. How long's a piece of string? Where are you putting most of your energy? What's the main goal? How can we structure things differently? Because that's going to be so much more effective than me going, right, Luke, Monday, we're going to do GVT, 10 by 10, heavy squats. And you're like, but I've got 6 calls that day. That would be irresponsible for me to program you that on a Monday. So it's about, and that can change. It's like, okay, well, if we know we've got non-negotiable sessions and optional sessions, and I do this with my team, 3 non-negotiables, they are every week, you have to hit them no matter what. Don't care when you do them, as long as by the end of the week they're done, you choose when they go in. We've then got maybe 2 optional sessions. If you've got a quieter week, you're going to maybe bump it up to 4 and 5. But I know if you hit those 3 non-negotiables, by this date, you're going to be making X amount of progress. So when, again, it goes back to the stretching the vision, having the purpose, but then bringing it back on a micro level and going, how do we manage things? Looking at how busy you are. When's going to be a good time for you to go and do those main sessions? Find your right time, find your good days. That makes such a difference over a longer term period. And we discussed this in the cafe about having a 12-month to 24-month vision. How many days a week do you want to train? It's all well and good getting in shape, but staying in shape is a different ballgame. So, anyone can train hard for 6 weeks and starve themselves to a body. You can't starve yourself to a body that you love, because your energy is going to be shit. You're going to struggle to maintain it. It's about how do we implement those habits long term that you're going to be able to stick to. Well,
it's funny because, again, my lens is still like of an MMA fighter.
Train hard every day.
not quite that, but I mean, elite level MMA fighter. So we would do that. We would do exactly what you just said. You would structure your week and you would look at your energy output. So let's say we do 2 or 3 sessions a day. Because and again, everyone's different. Their genetics, their energy levels, whatever. I was a heavy diet guy because I used to fight 84 kilos. I'm the tallest middleweight in the world. I'm 6'6", 2 meters. So I would be on very, very little calories. So my output was, I had to be on. But they'd be like, I trained with a guy called Phil Davis, who was a NCAA champion wrestler. He had incredible output. Like he's the most athletic guy I've ever met, could train 3 times a day, full output, boom. And when I moved to San Diego, I would train with Phil. He'd be my main training partner every day. And this guy would murder me. And I mean murder me every day. I got tough as fuck, but I got murdered. So my training session was harder than his because he was murdering me. I wasn't murdering him.
Yep.
So we would, what I did is I looked at my week and I realized that I probably need, because every session was like a murder session, I ended up doing 1 on a Wednesday and 1 on a Saturday. So I do 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1. There'd be like stretching sessions and mental sessions and game plan sessions that you'd add in. But that was like the basics of it. 2 on a Monday, 2 on a Tuesday, 1 on a Wednesday, and then we would color scheme our thing like red, yellow, green. So you'd have a red session, yellow session. So obviously you wouldn't want 2 red sessions on the same day. So one of my red sessions would be sprinting, like heavy sprinting. High intensity, big output sprints. I would not do them the same day I'm going to do sparring.
Yeah.
Just wouldn't happen. Seems obvious when you talk about fighting and you talk about training. But then now what you're telling me, which I never thought of before, which is so simple, is just doing that and then overlaying your life, or doing your life and then overlaying your training is probably the other way.
In terms of priority. Keep the goal. If the goal right now is physical, okay, then the business stuff fits in around that. And then family time, everything else gets, obviously you're not going to not spend time with your family, but you see what I'm saying, just in terms of overarching goals compared to, and that can change, like, without getting too technical, when you think of how a coach periodizes training, maybe like endurance, hypertrophy, build muscle, strength, power, and then you go back, maybe do some testing. It's the same. It's like within those periods, you can microcycle stuff. It's like you might know you've got 2 really busy weeks of work, but then after that, you've got 2 weeks of like a call a day, and you're not that busy. The business is still ticking over. It's like, okay, one thing that works amazing with my guys who are really busy is like looking at your month and say, look at your quarter. What social events have you got? What big work meetings, whatever. And then periodize, just like you would your training, your schedule in terms of push and pull weeks on a week by week basis. Because you've got an overarching vision for your work schedule, your training, your goals. It takes the pressure off. Because most guys go into a fat loss at 35 thinking, right, I need to beat myself into the ground. I need to get as much off as possible. Whereas if I say to you, right, Luke, you want to lose 15 kilos, 12 kilos, whatever it is, we average between 0.5 to 1.5 kg a week over a 12, 16-week period. You'll get there by this date. Now, some weeks where we're going to be more busy, I don't mind if you maintain the same weight or you only lose half a kilo, because we're not regressing. And it's like chip away, and you can have a week where it's push, and you lose up to 1.5 kilos, and then the next week you maintain. And as long as you're going towards that bigger vision, that's more important. But a lot of guys get caught up in the day-to-day of like, they're so like emotionally volatile in their emotions that they're like, restrict binge cycle. They'll be like, I had a huge weekend. This week I need to pull everything right back. And then it just reinforces that behavior, that cycle of restricting themselves. Then they want to binge, whereas it's like, okay, well, let's plan this out over a bigger period. Let's look at how your energy is performing and adjust accordingly. That makes such a bigger difference in not just getting in shape, but maintaining shape long term.
I think that the thing that, because I've done that, the exact program, like I think for most guys listening to this, if you want to get into shape or if you want to achieve something, you said it earlier, and I believe in this and I talk about this a lot. The idea is think about the position that you want to get to, think you're in that position, and then reverse engineer how you get there. Doing it with weight is the easiest thing in the world. You just did it. 12 kilos, 0.5 kilos a week, or to 1.5. That's genius. It's so simple, but it's so effective. The problem is, for me personally, I've found is, okay, I'll lose half a kilo, I'll lose a kilo, and then I forget about it and I move on to something else because I'm so busy.
No accountability though. That's
no accountability. That's what I'm saying. So I'm missing the accountability factor to make sure that I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And you said look at your social calendar. My social calendar personally is manic.
You get
manic. So but it's not an excuse. It's just reality. It's the reality. And again, I've identified the problem and I need to work out how to solve it. So I think that's really, really good advice for people that are trying to, again, this is what I was going to ask, personal question again, but I couldn't care less how much I weigh. My weight doesn't matter to me, but so the measurement for me I was looking at was like body fat. I don't really care about my body fat percentage at all. Like, to be honest, I've never been a visual kind of guy. I don't care I never cared how I looked. I was all about effectiveness, being able to win. Performance. I was a performance-based athlete. I'm no longer performance-based because I haven't got to perform in any, in that way, right? So I'm now transitioning my identity from being a performance-based athlete into just being healthy and wanting to be in shape. So rather than looking at losing weight, because I couldn't care, I'd actually want to put weight on. Personally, I'd like to be a fucking monster, like 130 kilo monster, stacked. That's what I would like. I would like that as an end result. But what would be the measurement that you would look at? Would you look at body fat percentage, or how would you kind of gauge it?
Yeah, I mean, a really important takeaway that a lot of people just overlook is body weight is just data. Don't get caught up on it. And a lot of guys compare them. This is a huge problem. I see guys specifically compare themselves to their 20, 25-year-old self when they're 30, 35. You're naturally going to progress and probably accumulate more muscle mass as you get older, like dad strength, right? Dad bod, dad strength, that kind of thing. But body weight is just data. And it's just one metric that I use with my clients to measure progress. Photos are an amazing one. Not that you care how you look, but if you can see you're visually getting leaner, that's going to play a huge part as well. And there's so many other things as well. You can do the caliper testing, you can do measurements. As a bigger picture, it's like, okay, well, if none of them are improving, we need to look at what the big rocks are. But generally speaking, if you do, and I'm not saying do this every week, my guys sometimes weigh in every week. Some of the guys have like a bi-weekly, even just a monthly call where I'm like, tell me your data. And if things aren't progressing, we'll bring it tighter and we'll do it more often. But there's so many ways you can measure progress that it's like, just decide how you want to do it. What works best for you? If you said you're looking at hiring a PT, maybe you'll just get your calipers done every 3 weeks.
But I know what calipers are.
Yeah,
explain what a caliper is.
Fat calipers, you'll see them, they're like little pincers. You'll take 4, well, it depends how many you want to do, but measurements, so like one here, one on your back, bicep, tricep, sometimes leg, and then you'll add it up, do a calculation, and it tells you what % body fat you are. And it's accurate to a degree that you can measure your progress with it. It is a good way to do it. But again, scale weight can as well. The only thing with scale weight is that if you are, like you said, wanting to build muscle, you can experience what's called a body recomposition, where you lose body fat and you gain muscle, body weight stays similar. But that's why photos work, because you can see it. So it's just about know yourself. If you get in your own head about weighing yourself all the time, don't fucking weigh yourself. Take some photos, take them weekly, create the habit, use it as accountability, or hire someone to give you accountability. Plug my thing. No, I'm joking. But you see what I'm saying? It's one of those things, like, if you know yourself, find a different way that works for you and just keep trying.
I think go to hiring you or making a joke. I'd say, like, going back to the business idea. So obviously we get it. I'm fat and I need to lose weight, and I will. Don't worry. I'll put all these things into place. I love the idea of doing what I was doing with the color scheme, like red, yellow, green sessions, but overlaying them with my work schedule and how my work looks and my travel schedule. And I've never thought to do that. So I'm definitely going to do that, and that will help me massively. And yes, I'm going to get a PT. I'm going to work certain days and that'll be red sessions for me, because the guys are psycho and he'll make me work out really, really hard, which is good. I've always been a bit of an absolute or nothing guy. So that's what I was going to get to, is like, I've always been 100% or nothing. And I got a friend of mine, and he says, oh, you need to like you said it before, like you need to be a bit more longevity and look at more of a longer scale, 12 to 24 months, and make small changes. But my brain doesn't work like that. I'm not the guy that could just drop off one thing or drop off two things. I'm either focused 100% on doing this, or I'm focused 100% on doing that. So if I need to change that mindset, fine. But what is the shifts that you would make? Let's say me right now, I want to get to 11, 12% body fat. How do I get there? In my mind, I do all the things that I did when I was fighting, which to some people are quite extreme, like diet-wise, but I could do it, no problem. Change all those things and go 100% into training. So you said, like, oh, you want to make easier changes. Like, what would you say to someone who has that mentality, who I'm obviously a successful person, successful at fighting. So I know how to do it. I don't have a problem with knowledge or a blockade, but I'm just 100% on business or 100%, and you said about prioritizing all that sort of stuff. What would your advice be to try and shift someone's mindset so they're not that 100% guy?
Take the time to redefine what success is. So again, like stretching that 12 to 24 month vision, be like, okay, like what does the end result look like for you in terms of all or nothing is fine. I don't have an issue with all or nothing guys are great. I work with a lot of high performers that all in, and that's great. But it's just about re-establishing and managing expectations about what all in actually looks like now. Because all in to what you considered all in was when you're 25 is different to what you're 35. So again, like guys are going into the gym trying to do bro body part splits, chest, back, arms, when really they only have time for maybe 30, 45 minute session. It's like, okay, well, let's do full body. Let's maybe superset, do some circuits, that kind of thing. It's like just redefining what all in actually looks like. Make the next logical step, the lowest hanging fruit and entry level as easy as possible, because then you can build on it, and that feels like you're doing more and more and more. So for high performing guys that are constantly in that, like, I want to do more, start off relatively simple, and it's like every week then you feel like you're making huge leaps. Maybe just try 2 sessions a week, and then you go 3, and then you're like, okay, I'm getting up to 4. Those kind of things make such a big difference, especially because it feels like you're building massive amounts of momentum. But just take the time to establish at the start the ability to manage your expectations of what success is. Right now, you haven't trained for fucking 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, a year. You doing 2 training sessions a week for a month, that's all in. That's really fucking good. Eating 80% whole foods is good. So it's just about, as a coach, you just educate. It's like, okay, forget what you think you know. All in right now is getting to that first fucking result of losing a kilo. To do that, all we need is this. If you do that, that's you going all in.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, I like that.
It's hard for some guys to take that on board, but then I'll just say to them, look, you either take me seriously as your coach and you come in here, or it's not a dictatorship, but it's like you've come to me for a reason. You've either got buy-in, you trust, you relate, whatever. I've got the social proof, I've got the data here. Trust the process. Go do it for 10 days. See how you feel. If your energy's good, you feel like you're making progress. And then we can have more in, but just that lowest hanging fruit, let's get there first, that first step. And then it becomes a snowball effect.
So then, like, we'll talk about how you get in contact with you for your business and all that sort of stuff at the end. But if you were, as you were a 10-year in-person PT, like, what would your advice? There's so many personal trainers out there that are trying to look how to scale their businesses and work things out. We kind of spoke about it, finding mentors, and you said about it. But what would your like number one piece of advice be for somebody who's trading their time for money on a one-to-one basis to trying to scale that and do something different online, like that you've done? We've had deeper conversations about this, and I feel like you have a good outlook on this. So I just thought it'd be a good question to ask.
Yeah, it's a great question because I've helped a couple of younger PTs like start thinking about this kind of thing. I've coached, I wouldn't say mentored them, but coached a couple of PTs so that they can see how I do it in terms of systems and all that. But the number one starting point is just get clear on who you want to work with. Because again, like if we're going back to what we said at the start in that fulfillment thing, if you go, right, I'm going to start working with, I don't know, high level athletes, it's like, okay, well, do you have the experience? Can you actually build that? It's like not a case of you can achieve anything, right? But be realistic. Get very clear on, in the marketing world, is what you call a niche, who you specialize in, and really go 100% on like what problems are you going to solve for them? Who do you want to work with? Most importantly, like what's your dream client look like? And then you can basically reverse engineer that and create resources, create a course, materials, stuff like that are going to help that person, that group of people, solve those core problems. And that's not the same in any business. That's not fitness related. It's like, what problems are you solving? That's all business is. You charge for a service to solve someone's problem. So who do you want to work with? What problems are you going to solve? And then you start plugging in all the shiny objects of like a logo, brand name. Like forget about all that stuff early on. I made that mistake. Spent so much time focusing on branding and all that shit when I need to just speak to more people. You know, why are you not getting any clients? Because how many people are you talking to and trying to help every day? It's like, it's the simple stuff.
Because I think a lot of people do get hung up on that, but starting for a lot of people doing everything you just explained is quite a scary leap to make. They have no knowledge on it whatsoever. You know, like again, talk about Dan again, like we were talking. He has zero knowledge. So where did you, I know you said again, you did mentorships, but where did you find the knowledge to, because we spoke, I'm going through this journey now, scaling a business online, selling info products, doing all these things. And I'm asking you questions about it because you were there a little while ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, where did you find the resources to help you with this?
I think it's one of them, like if you've got ground experience of doing, it's different in every industry. Like I said, it isn't. It's like, I've been in the fitness industry for 12 years, right? So probably longer now. How old am I? 29? Yeah, 12 years. So I knew that online coaching was an aspect within the fitness industry, but I already had the experience as a coach. So it's kind of like just branching out from that. But I think for other guys, it's like, not other guys, anyone who's looking to start or go into online, it's just, okay, well, who's in your industry? Who are the leaders in the industry? Who are the educators? Who are the people that are doing really fucking well? It doesn't have to be a business mentor. Like Joe, my coach, is not really like there to mentor me from a business perspective. He does help in a sense, but he's done some amazing things physically that I was like, I want to fucking do that. He's run a very fast marathon. May, I did a powerlifting, what I call a powerthon. I did a powerlifting total and I ran a marathon in the same week. So squat, bench, deadlift, my max, ran a marathon in the same week. I never thought I could even run a marathon. Hired him, showed me the blueprint, boom, go and do it. So it's not even a case of like finding mentors. It's about, okay, do you see anyone that's done what you want to do? So first, get clear on what you want to do. What problems do you want to solve? Who's currently solving those problems? Get in their circle, that environment thing we talked about. Learn everything you can from them. Go fucking implement it. And you're already halfway there. And if you have to pay to do that, pay to do it because it's going to save you time. It's going to save you energy. It's going to give you confidence in the process. And that's invaluable. You know, it might cost you $6,000, $8,000, $10,000. Don't care. I've invested, I don't want to say how much I've invested in my own education, but it's a lot. But if it saves you time, energy, and emotional stress, it's worth every penny.
But then the question that I get, well, people come to me and they talk, Dan might be another example, or any personal trainer, they're like, yeah, but is that market not saturated? Now, do we not see people all the time? There's so many personal trainers going online and influencers going online. It's not a saturated market. I feel like that's a pain point for a lot of people to start. Well, what do you think about that?
Nobody can be you better than you, right? And no one's lived your life. No one can have the experiences that you've done. And that makes you are the only one in that market. No one can be you better than you, right? So if you're, especially in the fitness industry, it's a relationship building industry. You have to have buy-in to your coach. You have to have, I believe anyway, connection to your coach. That's why I talk about my own previous fuck-ups in my content, because it allows guys to read it and go, he's a normal geezer. He's a normal guy. He's not perfect. You know, we had this conversation before. You have some influencers who will portray a certain image about them, you know, they've never had a fucking scar. They've never done anything wrong. And it's like, I mean, some people buy into it, but it's just not, I don't think it's realistic. And I'd rather be fully transparent, because then people will always respect you enough to take on board your feedback. And they're the kind of clients that you want. So if you're going into the industry of coaching or PTing, just have that authenticity. Be yourself, like as cliche as that sounds, because no one can be you better than you. And if you just keep putting content out there, the right people will gravitate towards you. Going back to what we said about values, morals, you know, sense of humor, like post personal shit on your stories, put yourself out there, let people know who you are, because it'll detract the wrong people, because you don't want to end up working with people who you're going to clash heads with anyway, but it'll attract the right people as well.
I think that's perfect advice, and I think for a lot of people that are worried to take that leap, because I was a little bit as well, like, oh, everyone's doing it. Another bit of advice is there's so many people in the world, and the internet's such a huge space to work with, and like you just said, no one can be better than you, and you will attract those people that are attracted to you and your view and everything else. And the thing about personal training, I know we're talking just about that, is like, if you're a successful personal trainer and you're fully booked, you obviously have something, right?
You're popular. People obviously like you. So like, use that, use your past experiences. This is going back to what we said about guys getting in shape, guys building a business or whatever. How many guys do you know that don't take the time to, and again, this is like a woo-woo topic if you want to say that, take the time to reflect and celebrate your wins. Because that is such a huge part of building confidence. Because I say a new client comes on board and they're like, I've got the confidence, I can't do it, I'm like, right, show me the examples of where you've been successful in life, because confidence is a spectrum. I guarantee you come to me and you say you've got low confidence, you're going to be confident in some areas of your life. I've got clients who are dads, and with our kids, you'll be 100% off the grid a better dad than I will because you've got hands-on experience. You know, it's just some areas of your life you need to gain confidence. It's the same with coaches. It's like, well, what are you good at? What have you done? What are you proud of? Every single one of you will have something that you've done well. Just double down on it. Remind yourself of that. And it's not a case of like, right, fucking hour affirmation in the morning. Like, I'm fantastic. I've done it. But like, just check in with yourself now and again. Have that opportunity and that point to check in with yourself. Because I guarantee they'll all have done something good.
I think you said woo-woo a couple of times. I think you maybe have a hang-up on that, but I'm woo-woo, way more woo-woo on what you're saying. So I say things like talk to the universe.
Yeah, but I'm super spiritual, but it's like some guys who are in high-performing jobs or whatever that like, or even the guys that are older than me who aren't on social media, who aren't into like spirituality and things that are kind of more becoming aware of, they see that like, what the fuck's he on about? But it's like affirmations, journaling, all that stuff. It's like, it has to be relatable to the language that you want to speak to people. And that's what I'm saying, like, you can call this woo-woo, that's fine, but hear me out.
Yeah, I agree, because I have a very woo-woo approach to my morning and what I do in it. I think connectivity to yourself and to your day, and again, I talk about intention, what you're going to look at. So many things today have really helped me because I have a good framework. I have my day, the way I work, and have structure to my day. And I put the blocks in place. But again, talking about the intention, every morning I'll spend 10 minutes speaking to the universe or meditate, whatever you want to call it. All I do is lay in bed and think about how my day's going to look and visualize the day and think. But now when I'm visualizing that day, I now understand that I'm probably putting my energy into different things. Like this morning, I put more energy into visualizing this podcast than I did my workout. You know what I mean? And the workout's more important in my priority list right now, if you look at it that way, after our discussion. So yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. I think we talk about confidence a lot on this podcast, and I do especially, but I think something I've been realizing now, most people are not confident because they're not competent at something, or because they're pretending to be good at something that they're not. Like they're lying to themselves and lying to the universe. So if you're lying and pretending that you can do something that you cannot do and you are not competent in doing, of course you're not going to be confident about it because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. So rather than telling those lies, and I think degrading yourself by lying to yourself, walking around saying that you are something that you are not, social media has made everyone do that. And you can have a picture of you in a certain place doing a certain thing, and yes, you were there and you did do that thing, so that's fine. But you have to understand, if you are projecting value into the world that is not your own, and you do not truly believe in that thing, and you are lying to the world, you're never going to grow confidence. The quickest way, I think, to be confident is just to do simple things, say you're going to do simple things, and do those simple things. And once you do those simple things, you've said it, they stack. I love that.
The low-hanging fruit, like go. Build
stacks over and over time. And I think that's something that they make addicts do, that go through like addiction problems. When they get back on the horse, if you want to call it that, and they start trying again, they go, okay, all you got to do is these little things. If you achieve these little things, walk to the shop and back every day. Okay, that's a tick. And then you feel like, I walked to the shop and back.
Do a food shop.
Exactly, little things. Okay, if you're trying to get in shape, do a food shop and don't buy any crap. That's a tick. You know what I mean? That's something that you need to do to be able to achieve this thing. So I think confidence comes from competence. Someone said that to me on the podcast, and I like how they said that. But so many people are walking around in this world pretending to be something they are not. And that's where there's a disconnect between who they are and what they're trying to be. And I think that just over time, that erodes people's confidence.
Mate, it's such a good point. It's like you asked me about, what advice would I give to up and coming PTs or anyone looking to transition online. It goes back to that like authenticity thing. Like, I'm so transparent about the fact that I fucking love house music. I love going to raves. Like, it's my life. I don't. If anyone wants to judge that, cool. Do I get my clients' results? I'm amazing at my job, 100%. So like, no one can take that or say anything. But there was a time in my life when I was a coach, I used to be embarrassed that I would say, like, to go to those events with my friends, and that created internal conflict in me because I felt like an imposter. And you probably have that starting up a podcast. You feel like, I'm not good enough to do this, and that's what
I never have that. But yeah, carry on.
Just say as an example. PTs who are trying to go online, they're like, I can't do that. I feel like an imposter. And it's that internal dialogue, and it goes back to who you surround yourself with. It's like, are people reinforcing that narrative? Because if they are, then it's not the right circles for you. And I think it comes back to that of like, if you can change the circle, you can change the general narrative, and you stop feeling as much like an imposter because you see what's possible. And that's, again, going back to if they want to start online PT, just put yourself in circles where the desired behavior is the normal behavior.
I mean, you talk about narrative, I think, and I think of the narrative
Stories,
the story or the narrative that you tell yourself every day depicts the person that you're going to be.
Yep.
So again, you don't lie to yourself, and you don't pretend to be someone that you're not. That's not really, you have to be who you are.
Like fake it till you make it.
Yeah, you can fake it till you make it, and there's something wrong with that. And there's no problem in lying to yourself if that's what you're trying. If you're doing it, comes down to purpose, right? Reasoning why you're trying to do it. If you're trying to improve your life and become better, fine. There's no problem with doing that, as long as you're backing up the I'm this guy with the action it takes to become this guy, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I think the narrative you tell yourself and the story that you tell yourself is the most vital thing. And even if you look at your past, you know, and you think, oh, but I failed at this, or all these like stories that you tell and memories that you have and you go through, you can repurpose them to become powerful things for you in your life. Mm-hmm. If everything in your life was negative, obviously we've all had negative, shitty times and bad moments, and girls have broke our hearts and all this crap has happened, but you can't dwell on that and it be a negative part of your life. If you turn that into a positive part of your life, like, this girl broke my heart and I became this because of this, you know, like if you can, someone taught me this, which I thought was super, super powerful. I had this is woo-woo right now. This is woo-woo.
Love it. Go.
I had a really bad altercation, let's use that phrase, with someone. And he made me like remember, it was just an argument. He made me remember the argument, why the argument happened, all these sort of things, and where the anger that I had from the argument came from.
Triggered you somewhat.
What triggered me? What triggered me? And when you identify what triggered you and what the problem was, and you have to like be deep in this and think about it. Like, so I really thought like why I was triggered, and then I worked out why I was triggered, and it all came down to respect and all these other things. But then he made me go through this whole exercise, and he said, right, so you got triggered, you had an argument, but this is so fantastic because now you know the things that caused this issue in your life, and now you can address it. So it's a positive thing that you got so angry, and from that anger you now have evaluated where you were and who you want to become, or that sort of woo-woo way. So now go through your memories and retrain that memory to be a positive time. So now when I think about this moment that I had, I'm like happy it happened to me, rather than sad it happened
Learning
to me.
curve experience.
Yeah, so I'm like, rather than being like, oh, I can't believe this was embarrassing or whatever, I'm like, I'm so happy that happened because that made me do this.
Yeah.
And I've repurposed that memory in my mind, so it brings me power and it makes me better. So it's like, why would I go through memories in my brain that make me feel bad? You know? Yeah. You're running away from it or moving towards it. So I think you can do that, and you can. So it's, again, I'm not lying to myself about what happened. The same thing happened to me. I'm just having a different perspective on that thing that happened to me, and I think it's like just such a powerful woo-woo exercise that makes
therapy's good.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, I don't know, but it depends on the therapy. I'm not like, but I'm just saying, if you can repurpose negativity in your brain, not other people. We talk about our circle, and our circle is so good because it reinforces the negativity or the positivity that you are putting into your brain. The supercomputer that is your brain is how you're going to live your life, right? So if you're talking to yourself negatively, your internal dialogue is, I'm not good enough, or I'm this, or then you're never going to move forward in your life. So you have to retrain your brain with the internal dialogue. And if you have a circle that is putting you down and thinking, oh, you're never going to make money online. It's not possible. Never going to happen. No, you don't know anyone that does that. But if you have, like my circle, I know people that make 6-7 figures a month online. A month. Listen to that. 6 figures a month. Easy. Multiple people, multiple examples. And you talk to them and they're like, yeah, it's easy, bro. You just do X, Y, Z. It's different than having some guy, you'll never make money online. And then your internal dialogue completely changes. And that's woo-woo, but it's real. Like if you can identify the problem, if you can solve the problem and you can act on the problem, anything is possible. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. This is something I actually wanted to talk about with you, because it's great to have friends who actually aren't afraid. And I say this to my clients, and I'm so grateful that we managed to talk about this weekend, is like not having the taboo about talking about finances. Because without getting too deep on it, like say if I brought up like therapy and stuff like that, is like a lot of people have like traumas from their childhood. And I spoke about this on a podcast with my friend Reese about, your inner child, and your inner narrative is ultimately your subconscious thoughts and behaviors are dictated by what happened to you as a kid and that inner child, right? And a lot of them are like, for a lot of people, financial traumas, like, not, shunning my parents. There just wasn't a lot of money growing up, but they delivered me everything. Very grateful in my childhood. But I know some of my spending habits through my 20s were as a result of having certain financial traumas around things. And a lot of, if you look at what the biggest stresses are in guys of why they maybe make certain decisions, I'm not saying everyone should go to therapy, but like we said, have you got that point to check in with yourself, you doing your morning routine? Think about the causation, the reasons behind why you do certain things, why you think certain ways. Helping you unpack that is like, it's a superpower. Because when you know yourself, you can be so much more in control of your actions, your decisions, your ability to plan, your ability to set boundaries, understanding yourself emotionally, what things trigger you. And then you're so much more consistent when it comes to your personal relationships, your ability to show up to the gym, not being emotionally volatile with food, your business. How many times for any of the entrepreneurs that are watching and listening to this, where you go through seasons and cycles of big month, you have a huge month of sales and you're like on top of the world, killing it. And then the next month you do probably half the revenue and you're like, I'm a failure. It's that inner narrative, but it's like understanding your emotions, understanding the triggers and all of those different things. That's so important in going self-employed. And it's such I think, an unspoken thing that when you start a business, there's so many other moving variables, especially from a mindset, like having to deal with that and be emotionally resilient, still show up when things are hard. That's not talked about a lot. And that's why, going back to a question you asked earlier, why hiring a mentor is great is because they've already been through those. Using that kind of revenue example, you have your first amazing month, you launch a program, 100 people sign up. Next month, you get 5 intakes. You start telling yourself, should I do this? Should I not? You got a mentor in your corner already told you that that's probably going to happen. You don't even think twice about it. You move on. You look at things objectively, not emotionally. And that's something that having someone in your corner is so valuable for.
And I think that it's a great way to put it, but I think it's having a third-person perspective on your life. It's you know it. So easy to give other people advice. So easy. They tell you a situation, you see with clarity, that's the problem, just do this. And they're like, yeah, but no, just do that, it'll be fine. Because everyone's good at giving other people advice, but taking it on yourself is difficult. So if you think about that from a business perspective, because I look at it through fighting, again, my lens is still an MMA fighter. There is no fighter in the world zero fighters in the world that are successful that don't have a coach. There's none. There's no fighter in the world that fights in the UFC that does not have a coach. There's not one. No world champion in the world does not have a coach. World champions have 8 coaches, different things, different sections, things. Psychology, they have everything. A guy helping them all the way. And through when you're fighting, you're the guy in there, but you have 3 people in your corner telling you information that you maybe can't see. So you have that clarity from the outside looking in. It's like so important, but people don't want to accept that in life because they want to be the boss and they want to do everything and they think they're capable. And of course you're capable, but if you just get one bit of advice, you can go so much further. And like you said, you have this amazing month, then you have a bad month, you're going to feel like shit and think you're a piece of shit. Your corner is going to say, listen, Seth, bro, last month you made 100 grand. Why are you complaining about only making 5? Don't worry about it. It's going to come back as long as we do. And it gets you out of the rut straight away, I think that's super advice. I know everyone thinks it's like, and again, you said it just doesn't have to be a mentor or a coach, or it just has to be someone you can reflect back and forth of who's living the life that you want to live. So if someone's this is my biggest bit of advice, is if you're trying to find a mentor or someone to look up to, look at their life and see what they're doing and see if that's how you want to live your life. Don't look at their Instagram and think that's their life, because it's not. Try and find people in your area and talk to them and have deep conversation with them about these topics, and then you can see if there's someone that you want to emulate or not, because it's so much easier to give advice on how to do things if you've done them yourself. That's why I brought you on the podcast, because I know you've been through the online business and scaling and doing all this stuff with your business, and you have a very, very good outlook on it. That's why I want to get to know you, because I know you can help me with online business. So I think just getting closer to people like that is only going to bring you further forward. So let's finish up. Let's finish with you talk about like your business, like I said, the very, very end of it. You've already explained what you do, but talk about how people would be able to get in contact with you if they want to work with you, what results you can bring, how.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, to plug the stuff. So I have two ways to work with me. The main one is one-to-one. So that is just one-to-one coaching, but I have something called the 6-week hybrid athlete challenge, which is,
say that again.
6-week hybrid athlete challenge.
Hybrid athlete.
Hybrid athlete. Yeah, it's just about how you can perform more like an athlete, as opposed to a lot of the guys that I work with come in and they're in a position where they want to start taking care of the longevity of the health, not just doing bodybuilding movements, stiff. They want to be more athletic, and that's a great entry level if you want to work with me. And then there's the one-to-one. So the best way to do that is to just directly message me on Instagram. There's a call to action in my bio, message me, thumb up, or what, I can't remember what it is at the minute, but follow the call to action, drop me a DM. And yeah, like I said before, when we were talking earlier, I have an aptitude test. There's not a guy in my program one-to-one that I wouldn't sit and have a pint with. There's a metaphorical pint. It could be a Coke Zero. I don't care what it is. But, you can't just enter. I do want to have a conversation with you, want to get to know you, make sure we're cool. And that's it. That's how they do it.
Well, obviously, we'll drop below in the bio links to all your stuff, so you don't have to say where they follow you. They can just find it in the bio below. And amazing having you on. I got a lot of clarity from it. The biggest takeaway for me is the red day, yellow day, green day exercises overlaying it over your life. So I'm not doing a red day session in the gym and having a red work day, and I'm working the two, and then I know which my priorities are. I'm going to put that into action straight away. So I appreciate that, and hopefully everyone else learned a little bit and had a good time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, bro.
All good, guys, and we'll see you next week as well for All Ears.